Hello, hi Salwa, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good, alhamdulillah. It's nice to connect with you again. We have our weekly calls, but why not share this with everyone?
Yes.
Salwa, you are one of the things that inspire me about you is how you use your tools, so design, um, to create solutions and to help other people. And especially in this time, I feel a lot of people are going through difficult times and they need as many solutions as they can get.
Yeah.
So can you tell us more about what you do, and then we're going to talk about how we met also.
Um, my journey with design started early on. I think especially when I was going to university, and you have to pick. So I think everyone has an innate idea that we are creative beings, but then you have to sort of make the decision of whether it's going to be interior design or product design or architecture. And I think for me, that was a crucial step because it made me define what design was. I think a lot of times we think of design as either a good, which is furniture or a product, or we think of design as a service. So it could be interior design, it could be architecture. And to me, the true definition of design became the impact of design. What does design really do? And I think after that point, when that became my perspective on design, regardless of what I was doing, regardless of what the end product was going to be, whether it turns out to be a piece of furniture or if it turns out to be a space, i I was more concentrated on, or my mood boards became more about the cause. Why am I doing this? How does this help someone, or how does this help someone's lifestyle? How does it help our environment? But I think when you define design for its impact rather than what it looks like, that's when we have something valuable. And I think that's when you and I connected with our passions, um, to really try and help a cause that we saw around us.
Beautiful. I'm just gonna tell people more about what I did with the chair. So I had created a meditation chair a few years ago, and the concept behind it was to create a space for well-being, people who were stressed at work, people who were just occupied with life, to have a place to sit and relax and meditate, and to make that meditation part of their daily life just by bringing in that piece of furniture. And when I met Salwa was working also with kids with autism,
Mm-hmm.
and how furniture can help their well-being too. And we found a lot of connecting dots, and like
Yes.
we both have the same passion, creating spaces for people who um, are seeking well
Yeah.
ecosystem, and we also have sustainability under
Mm-hmm.
underneath all of
That's the
that.
core of it. Yeah.
So let's talk more about that. Let's talk more about the autism and well-being.
With autism, I started my research for a year and a half. Um, I started to do research on how much of autism we have within the country. So there was a statistics that said there's a child diagnosed every 20 minutes, and that's a very high number. And these are children that we want to give a voice to. We want to make sure they're represented. And so I started doing research on how design could really help, because with autism, a lot of times it's about how a child is perceiving their environment, whether there are certain things that can be a high stimuli, certain things that can be a low stimuli, and how can design really help them feel safe in an environment. So I made a design sensory matrix where I sort of condensed all of the research that I found over the year. And it was divided by the sensory, which is our main way of seeing and feeling the world. So it was visual, our senses, even the way we perceive. And then I cross-referenced that with design attributes, which was, it could be scale, it could be texture, it could be color, but I was really able to, with that matrix, really able to understand how could design become a tool in helping children.
Amazing. And probably in the future we will be sharing our designs with people. But
Yeah,
maybe we can start talking about tools that people can have at home now, given the circumstances. Parents are at home, kids are at home, um, with different learning difficulties and
yeah,
homeschooling,
yeah,
and parents also having to, have that workspace.
yeah.
How can we create a space for the family to connect while maintaining professional distance and educational distance?
Yeah, I think the first thing would be, and this would be the most obvious one, is to have a visual barrier. I think a lot of times, especially with our more modern open space designs, what we lose is that the security of having certain areas for certain specific functions. So whether it is to have a visual barrier for your child to know in this specific area we learn and in this specific area we play. And I think, and the same would be then for adults, to have areas that we could do our professional meetings, and also have an area where we could interact with people. A lot of the solutions that you and I were discussing and working on is to sort of create that barrier where you can, in a social setting, and in this term I'm referring to social as in within your family also, when you're around people, to be able to have a tool or have a product that you could manage the amount of privacy and interaction. Because I think now that we've been discussing more about solutions, that becomes the two keys of design, about how can we give someone privacy and how can we give someone interaction at the same time.
Yes, and light and sound and texture, they all come into play here. So the amount of light you let in, the amount of shadow you let in, the
Yeah,
amount of we were talking about creating a sort of cave, but that cave needs to be also um, breathable.
yeah, yeah, precisely. Like, also for it to be acoustic, so when you're in the cave you do feel safe and almost away from things, but you don't feel claustrophobic because you do still want access to what's happening around you.
Amazing. And specifically with kids uh, with autism, they perceive sound in a different way.
Mm-hmm.
And it is very important for parents at home to have tools, I think, to understand how their child is perceiving sound, how their child is perceiving light, and maybe try to ease that situation. How do you
Yeah,
think furniture can help with that?
I think the first thing is, to for all of us to define, with autism you have hyper, hypo, and then there's in between hyper and hypo. So I think it's very important to understand what your child is perceiving and what the triggers for the stimuli are. At certain times we do want children to be exposed to high stimuli, so whether it is with maybe touching something that has a lot of textile, to encourage, so we want to encourage children to expose themselves to high stimuli, but also know that if you ever feel like it's too much, there's always a safe place for you to go into, and that would be the low stimuli. um, and I think, again, furniture is something we live with. It is how we live, and to create pieces of furniture that would help with the interaction of a child, is really valuable.
Amazing. So we have managed to incorporate amazing craftswomen and craftsmen in
Yeah.
our furniture. Right now, I'm actually connecting with all that texture. It's giving me a sense of ease. Wait, let me just share this with people. So this is the traditional Emirati sedu, but we're working with the sedu weavers to kind of create solutions. Also, textile is very important, but also bringing that element of heritage
Yeah.
is very much something that me and Salwa both
Yeah.
agree is very valuable for the well-being of the family and the well-being also of the kids' upbringing.
Yeah. I mean, we also think a lot of times, what we see becomes very generalized. And for us, the design and the richness of culture was something that was so unique that we wanted to push that forward, and help it grow. And So it became our point of connection to with everything we do to make sure we're having a touch of heritage, and there's such beautiful crafts that used to be done that we want to bring back into light.
Beautiful. What are some tips that you can share with parents of kids with autism on things that they can do to help their kids feel at home and feel safe and secure while they are working?
I think the biggest thing would be to create an area where they could not just play, but learn while playing. And so that is to not do something mindlessly, but to be able to play and almost learn on their own pace. So a lot of times I've seen there are these bead exercises that we've spoken about, also that a child can do to get really great motor skills. And that's something they could do for a longer period of time instead of a shorter period of time. And that way, I think the child also has their own space where they're um, encouraged to learn, where the child feels like, yes, this is my space where I want to learn. But learning is a play, so it's not intimidating.
Thank you so much, Salwa. It's so beautiful to connect with you and again to create solutions with you.
Yeah.
Truly blessed to have met you. Inshallah, we will continue everything that we're doing
Mm-hmm.
post-COVID. But for now, let's stay safe, stay well, and stay optimistic.
Yeah.
See you.
See you.